you all stand for a flag salute? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Michael Richmond,
Here.
Richard Patterson.
Here.
Dan Adams. Here. Craig Palmisano, Michael Ruffey, John Pitts, Stephen Giesecke,
Here.
Andrew Campbell,
Here.
Rich Tolson, Patty Rosenberg.
Okay, this meeting is being held in accordance with New Jersey statute requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the press and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that if you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form outlining the procedures for obtaining building permits and mercantile licenses. At the conclusion of your case tonight, please approach the board administrator to sign the provided information sheet. We're going to do the approval of meeting schedule for 2025.
I ask a question. Do we
Make a
need a
motion.
separate meeting just for rework? We've always just done it.
No, that's, well, my question is sort of related. January 8th for doing it, or should that say 28th?
If it's a separate meeting,
No.
then it would be the 8th, but if we want to take off the idea of having it as a separate meeting,
Oh,
then
were we intending to do a separate meeting? I just assumed that we would do the reorg and follow with it, whatever.
We were,
Okay.
and
They want us
have like
to-
an overflow. We might not even need that second meeting in January, who knows?
But there would be,
But
there
because
would be
the meeting in
applications.
December is like 5 weeks.
I see what you're saying, the 11th. But we would still hear applications
So
if
was that a
if
regular
necessary.
meeting? On the
it
8th?
could be both. It could be.
It could be
Oh,
both.
okay.
Okay, yeah, as long as
Reorg and
January
possible-
8th.
yeah.
I just didn't think we needed a separate meeting just for the reorg. And we're doing it tonight.
Right. Yeah, right.
So leave that date?
Yeah, we'll keep it,
Up to you
and,
guys.
and as it approaches, if we need to adjust, we will. You know, if December we have nothing for whatever reason, maybe we don't need to. But yeah, I say we leave it and we'll deal with it as it approaches.
Okay, so approval of meeting schedule for 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we're going to do the annual reorganization, election of chairperson and vice chairperson.
I nominate Mike Richmond to be chairperson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. I nominate Richard Patterson to be vice chairperson. Somebody second that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That's all. Any nays? Okay, I just want to just get it on the record.
You didn't ask for him.
I know, well. Any nays on Mike Richmond? Okay. Yeah.
All right. Next, we have staff appointments. First one is board solicitor. I
I
nominate,
nominate Leo Manis.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I won't ask if there's any no's on that one. So, thank you, everyone.
Secondly, board administrator, I'm going to nominate Pamela.
Who is?
Pamela Shiles. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next, we have the board planner. I'm going to nominate Roger McLaren. Oh, and the engineer also. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, now we have the appointment of by right subdivision subcommittee.
Craig and I did it before. We'll do it again.
Okay? All right, so I'm going to,
Our ordinance is a little confusing. It defines the by right subdivision committee as 2 members with Roger, and then somewhere else it says at least 3 members. So maybe we should add one more if there's anyone else.
Would anyone like to be on the by right subdivision? Huh?
Is that?
Yeah, like an alternate maybe.
Yeah.
It's an alternate?
I'll be an alternate.
You're an alternate? You want to be on it?
Sure.
Okay.
So who are the members?
All right. So it's Richard Patterson, Craig Palmisano, and Steve Giuseppe.
All right.
It's an easy one, Steve.
All right.
So you,
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we have the appointment of Site Plan Subcommittee, which is me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Richmond, Richard Patterson. We need anybody else?
I guess an alternate, I guess.
An alternate? Okay. All right.
How do
Anybody?
you want to be on that committee? I don't know.
not much.
No big deal.
You basically listen to what a preliminary, non-binding proposal is.
On occasion, from time to time. There's no set meeting schedule or anything like that.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
All right. And then we have appointment of Ordinance Review Subcommittee.
Pitts wants that.
Hmm?
Pitts wants to be on that.
Okay.
So,
So again, do we have 2 members and an alternate?
I don't know.
I guess just to
Hmm?
play it safe, I guess.
So, okay.
yeah, I think that's how we should do it.
Okay, so
Yeah,
John Pitts wants to be on that one. I'll be on that one. And Troy, you want to be that?
Sure.
Okay, great. You got that, Palmer?
Yep.
All right, we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right. And now, we have the swearing in of appointed members.
Okay, there's three members up for reappointment. Drew, you're one of them. I didn't give you this, so. I'll swear everyone in together. It's Dan Adams, Steve Giuseppe, and Andrew Campbell. And then after I swear you in, if you can just, sign those forms I gave you and, give them to Palma. So if everyone just stands and raises their right hand, and we'll all do it at once. I'm gonna say I, then state your name, and then we'll take it from there. I state each of your names. Do solemnly swear or affirm
Do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I do further solemnly swear or affirm
I do further solemnly swear or affirm
that I will impartially and justly
that I will impartially and justly
perform all the duties of the office of Planning Board member
perform all the duties of the office of Planning Board member
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering. I appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to do approval of minutes, meeting of December 19th, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approval of decisions and resolutions 01/2025, Pamela Feld Randall. 02/2025, Scott Dorfner. 03/2025, FIM Capital GP LLC. And 04/2025, MRD Margate LLC. So I'm going to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, our first case tonight is going to be William and Nicole Sold a bill, 110 South Vendome Avenue, Block 23, Lot 6, located in the S40 zoning district seeking C variance relief for maximum building coverage, minimum rear yard, minimum aggregate side yard setback, curb cut, deck height, and potentially others for the construction of a new single-family home. Covering on taxes, water, and sewer payments, proof of advertising, and notifications provided, represented by Eric Goldstein.
And, hey, Eric, before you get started real quick, Essex Avenue, do we need an announcement for that?
It would be great, yeah, just to say perhaps if we could just have that next month. Roger and I talked about getting some revised elevations. If we could do that without notice and advertisement, that would be very much appreciated.
And that's, got my schedule right here somewhere, February...
February 27th.
27th. Okay, so if anyone's here for Jamie Kushner and Ronald Nussbaum, 106 South Essex Avenue, Block 5.02, Lot 12. Excuse me, that's not going to be heard tonight. That is going to be heard next month, February 27th, 2025, 6:30 PM in this room. The applicant will not be required to republish or renotice, so
Thank you.
that's your official announcement on that. And I'll get Mr. McLaren sworn in too. Mr. McLaren, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
All right, so I'll kick this off with you, Eric. So the report is based on the application of William and Nicole Solvable, 110 South Bendham Avenue, Block 23, Lot 6, located in the S40 zoning district. The minimum floor elevation is 13 to the bottom. Zoning, if you don't put parking below, starts at BFE +4. Seeking C variance, planning and zoning report. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances in order to construct a new beachfront single-family dwelling which will require variances. The variances requested are for building coverage, minimum rear yard setback, minimum side yard setback, number of curb cuts, and minimum first floor deck height on the beach, and possibly others that may be discovered tonight. So this is deemed complete. Partially a hardship variance because the shape of the lot is a little bit oblong, but it is oversized. Minimum lot size for this zone is 4,000 square feet. The applicant is providing 5,333 square feet, as indicated on zoning chart on page 2. Highlighted and shaded on page 2 and 3 are the variances identified. So turning to page 3, the variances required are as follows. Side yard setback combined, whereas the minimum required side yard setback is 37% of the lot width, or 22 feet, and 17.82 feet is proposed. Rear yard setback to the building, whereas the minimum required rear yard setback is 20% of lot depth, or 16 feet, and 10.33 feet is proposed. Rear yard setback to the deck, whereas the minimum rear yard setback is 20% of the lot depth, or 16 feet, and 11.67 feet is proposed. Again, I would ask Mr. Lolio to confirm that dimension to the deck and not the house. The building coverage, whereas the maximum building coverage is 30% and 32.3% is proposed. And number of curb cuts, whereas only one curb cut is permitted and 2 are proposed. Curb cut width, whereas the maximum curb cut width is allowed to be 18 feet and 22.5 feet is the total curb cut width. However, if you eliminate the one, they would comply with the maximum curb cut width permitted. And last but not least is the beachfront deck height. The maximum permitted deck height on the beach is base flood elevation plus 20 inches, which in this case would be 11.67 feet from sea level, and they are proposed 18.45 feet. So that is a variance. No waivers have been requested. Couple comments, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Goldstein to provide testimony and present his case. The shape of the lot is angular, however, it is larger than required, as I mentioned before. The front yard deck request is due to the permitted elevated first floor deck, first floor, which will be the norm come June, more than likely. The original ordinance was written with the intent of a 4-inch step down onto the deck, both beachfront and bayfront. A reduction of 4 inches, where about 7 feet is requested, may not be noticeable based on the size and location of the structure. I did have one request, and that was to providing an ADA curb cut at the beach near the boardwalk, so people traversing the concrete public sidewalk can get into the street and get to the ADA crossing of the bulkhead, and they have agreed to do that. No street trees are required at the beachfront and the beach block zone, and that's my only comments right now.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. Mr. Chairman, congratulations to all the board members on being re-sworn in. My name is Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant, William Silvilbally. A little bit different than you said. He's sitting right here to my left with his daughter. Also with me tonight, John Barnhart and Bob Lolio, both of whom are going to testify. So, Leo, before I get started, maybe we'll just get them sworn in, and then I can walk through some of the preamble stuff with the application. One thing Roger kind of brushed over, which you're going to see a lot more of, unfortunately, the DEP now has over 1,000 pages of proposed rules and regs on the new beachfront and bayfront development. Currently not a law yet. It will be, according to the governor, in July. So what we're talking about is the continued FEMA requirements that DEP, and again, I guess it'll end up in Margate at some point, keeps going higher and higher and potentially further back from the beach, further back from the bay. So although those aren't regulations yet, I'm sure John can talk about those a little bit, and Roger as well, it's something we all need to be concerned with, which at some point, potentially, this deck height may not be a variance at all if DEP and NJDEP gets what it wants. So Roger, John's going to talk about that a little, and Roger and I spoke about that today. These are rules that are coming, and they'll be detrimental for development in general, but not in effect yet. But we have to keep an eye on them. They're 6 months out, and they will be bad. So maybe Bob and John come up. We'll get you sworn in, and then we can.
Okay, Mr. Barnhart, Mr. Lolio, just give us your name and business address, please.
Robert Molio, 219 Bellevue Avenue, Hamilton, New Jersey. John Barnhart, 400 North Dover Avenue, Atlantic City.
If you each please raise your right hand, each swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth.
I do.
And Mr. Chairman will accept their credentials as experts. Mr. Barnhart, an engineer and planner, Mr. Lolio, architect.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Manos. So before I get to Bob, just a little bit of history of the site. As you all know, the property backs up to a commercial building and a parking lot. The structure itself could have been raised under the automatic variance law to go up to take advantage of the views over the dunes and the beach. Rather than raise it in its current footprint, property owners thought it might be a better idea to tear it down and start from scratch, which does make the lot coverage much, much less. Still a variance, of course, and still a number of variances on the configuration of the property, but making it much better than what is there today. So having said that, Bob, if you don't mind, just take the mic, kind of walk us through your plan, and then we'll get to John as far as the planning aspects of the variances.
Yeah, as Eric mentioned, it was early discussions were whether to save the house or to tear it down and build new. Obviously, we decided to build a new structure. And it's your typical 2.5-story dwelling over a parking and entry storage area. So the ground floor consists of a 2-car garage, a little storage area, and then an entry vestibule off the back of the house. The first floor will be our main kitchen, dining, living level with 2 bedrooms on that level. The second floor will house 4 bedrooms, a den, and then the third floor will be the primary suite. The house is approximately 4,300 square feet. As far as the variances go, the combined side yard, we meet both minimum side yard setback. It's the combined side yard that does not meet the requirements. So the current side yard adjacent to the neighbor, we're at 8.33 feet, and 8 foot is required. So the house adjacent to the neighbors, which would affect the neighbors, the side yard meets the requirement. It's the beach side that creates the non-conformance on the side yard, but there's really no adjacent property that's affected because it's on the beach. And that is in part because there's 9.8 to a porch. So if you go to the building line, we would need to set the combined side yard. It's the porch that encroaches towards the beach.
I'm going to stop you for a second there, Bob, but fairly important, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the side yard setback is at its most narrow point at that area. It does get wider as the property goes back towards Longport, but we're measuring it from that one specific pinch point, not from the rear. And it's not based on an average.
Correct. The farther you go towards the back of the angle, the more it will conform to the side yard setback. It's
Right,
because
if
of
we
the
took the
angle.
measurement from the furthest point back, it would more than conform by quite a bit.
Correct.
Okay. So we're talking about this one area where it's at its closest point.
Yeah, it's this little, the pier by, that has been, it's 9.8 feet off the bulkhead.
Okay.
And then as we go back, if you split the difference, it's probably pretty close to conforming at the halfway point.
Okay. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
The other is the rear yard setback. That would be this side of the property. 16 foot's required, we're asking for 10.33 feet. The current house is at 10 feet, so we tried to maintain that building line of the existing dwelling.
And specifically, this is important, of course, to the board, what's behind the house? If you're at the rear looking backwards, what's back there?
That's the parking lot for the Sands.
Right.
Yeah.
Not another house, there's no other yard, there's no other area to look into. If you're at the back of this house looking rearward, you're seeing a parking lot and cars.
Yeah, there's no real neighbor affected on that side, as far as the openness of the side yard.
Okay. Would you clarify that just a little bit and characterize the rear yard as a unique situation? In Margate, there aren't too many homes that don't have a rear yard neighbor. Here you've got a rear yard parking lot, which is even rarer still, correct?
Correct, it's a unique situation.
Okay.
And then the rear yard also, Roger wanted, the rear yard to the deck is 11.67 feet.
Okay.
Again, 16 foot's required. There was an existing raised deck that was only 5 feet away from the property. So with the new house, we're trying to make it a little less imposing than what was there, while trying to, as best we could, meet the ordinance. The other one was the building coverage. Building coverage right now required is 30%. Our building coverage is 32.3%. And again, what exists today was 36.8%, so we're kind of trying to balance in between existing and proposed. Building height conforms. And I want to mention that our landscape area has drastically, our lot coverage has drastically been reduced. It was about 90%, and we're going down to 35%, which is the requirement. The
That's
curb,
because the whole thing was paved, right?
pretty, yeah.
The
pretty much.
existing
There was a-
house,
There was a few planters.
right.
John, can you repeat that?
The landscape?
Yeah.
The lot coverage, the landscape coverage was 90% previously.
No, the lot coverage was not
Lot
landscaping.
Lot coverage,
Right.
yeah. Lot coverage was 90%, we're going down to 35%. 35%, it meets the ordinance, so we're conforming to the landscape area.
So to be clear, I know this is important to the board members, we're going from almost no landscaping where it is today at 90% lot coverage to a percentage that complies with all of the landscaping.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question on the building coverage. You're starting with a clean slate, you've got a big lot by Margate standards. I don't understand why we would allow you a bigger building. You know, the previous one's not there anymore, today's standards, you've got a big lot. I see it's an odd shape, but it's not detriment, I don't see that as a hardship. 53-foot frontage is bigger than most lots in Margate.
Is that a question
So
or,
well, it's kind of a comment,
okay,
that you're starting from scratch on a big lot and you're asking for lot.
It really just came down to the decision of, if we kept what was there, we would have been the building coverage would have been greater. It was a decision early on that we had to make, because they wanted to
Well, I understand that,
maximize the
but you're
potential
not-
of the property.
Well, sure they want to they want to
Yes.
get more than maximize it.
Well, they're technically not, because if they decided to lift it, they could have gotten a lot more.
But they're not doing that.
Yes, it's just,
well,
Part
listen,
of the
respectfully, Mr. Patterson, we talk about this all the time. Every single property on every single lot can comply. There'd be,
I understand that, and if this was a small lot, if it was an odd shape that restricted it, but that's not the case here.
well, you do have an odd shape, and you have a parking lot behind, so if you.
Well, I
look
don't have
at-
a problem with your setback. I mean, when you're backing up to a parking lot, who cares?
Right. And I think that's kind of a
My
factor.
concern is the size of the house.
Understood.
You build a house too big for the lot by today's standards.
Thank you.
Go ahead, that's it.
I
The
don't,
other-
you know, just to talk about that a little more, like Rich said, you're tearing the house down. So to me, it doesn't really matter what was there before. I don't think you would raise that house because that house is probably rotted to the core. It's got the stuck, I don't know that for a fact. But,
Well, there could be a good chance that,
huh?
there could be a good chance that it does get lifted.
It's what?
There could be a chance that it does get
But
lifted.
you have that right. We wouldn't stop you from doing that.
Right, you couldn't stop us from doing something we could do by right. I think the point is, the board always looks at what you get as a benefit from the town. What you get is going from 90% lot coverage down to 35, which is a significant number. You get the curb cut that's now is across the entire front. You get a new structure that's flood compliant. So in tearing it down and starting from scratch as opposed to rehabbing it, there is a significant benefit. By saying you're starting with a blank slate, you can make it comply. Isn't that the case for every single application that comes before the board? There's no case that can't comply. So we think this is a better alternative by asking for a lot coverage variance. The
Building
benefit is building coverage.
So you're saying if the owner had to cut 125 feet from the house, he would raise the house?
We're not saying, no, we're not saying that. We're saying that it's possible. We're saying that everything's possible right now.
Right.
We're seeking to get a better planning alternative, which is why we're here. They could certainly tear it down and build per code, or they could raise per code, and we wouldn't be here.
And you have reasons for your setback within a parking lot behind you. too.
Right.
There's things that go.
Well, yeah,
I'm
to-
just
to meet the
thinking
building
this one
coverage-
issue of building coverage,
To
which
meet-
I don't see any hardship or reason that you would have to do it.
To meet the building code, we'd have to shift this rear yard setback down 4 feet.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And I understand that's the purpose of us, is to grant variances for unusual issues, and that's an unusual issue. I don't see anything unusual about the size of the lot to make the building coverage bigger, that's all.
The other variances were for the 2 curb cuts. We're at 7 bedrooms, so we have 2 spaces in the garage and then 2 spaces in the driveway. The extra curb cut is due to the fact that there was a current 6-foot wide easement on the neighbor's property. So to utilize that easement, it created the second 9-foot wide curb cut. And that gets you an extra 3 spaces, so we have a total of 7 spaces instead of the 4 required.
Is the easement on the neighbor's property or on your property?
It's on the neighbor's property.
You have an easement and that easement will survive the,
Correct, it runs with the land.
I think that house is currently under construction.
Yeah.
So Bob, real quick, on the deck that you're asking for a height variance for, is that going to be solid? Is it going to be open?
It will be some sort of open decking.
But you got pavers underneath, right?
There are pavers underneath.
Yeah, so.
And that'll be on a stone base?
Yeah.
So
It'll
it won't
be
be
like a
any,
permeable paver.
okay, so even though you don't get credit for pervious cover, it would allow percolation of the rainwater through the deck.
Yes,
And this is a highly permeable area.
correct.
Okay.
Patty, speak into the microphone, Patty. Thank you.
On the deck, you're showing that the underneath side of the
No, it's not.
deck is all enclosed. So, oh,
That's just it's a low retaining wall for grading.
this looks like, to me,
Oh,
like,
that,
yeah,
yeah, it's gonna be like an open gap, kind of,
but visually it's enclosed.
correct. That's not solid wall, it's got open air through it.
Okay. Is that gonna allow permeable, water to flow underneath
Yeah, there's gonna be like a horizontal board with a 1-inch gap in between, so I don't wanna enclose underneath the deck, because then it gets,
And this area in the back, which at some point I saw read, it's a cabana in here, and you've got sliding glass doors that open to that underside,
that's,
enclosed underside?
yeah, that's like an entry area off the garage to get into the house.
Ah,
The bulkhead's gonna be up, like, the bulkhead's gonna be higher than that patio at the ground.
okay.
There's also a door out onto the patio
Yeah,
as well.
but yeah, and
Correct.
it's going into that enclosed area.
Well, it's 8 feet on there, so, with the raised deck, that's kind of what happens.
Eric, was that easement used for parking and storage prior?
Yeah, today.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barnhart, unless you have questions for Mr. Lolio to continue.
Just one something out. On the rear yard, it's 10.33 is proposed. That's to the house, not to the waste bin, to the outdoor shower, correct?
Correct, the outdoor shower and waste, they're required to be at 5 feet, so they meet the order.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Lolio? John?
Try that again.
All right, John, you were obviously in the room when I talked with Roger about the new DEP regs that are going to affect us all very quickly. Talk about that just a little bit before you get into your testimony and how we think that the variances we're seeking are not only required, but will be favorably looked upon by DEP once the new regulations go into effect.
Sure, do you want me to talk about that specific topic
I
initially?
guess, just to educate the board a little.
So, the discussion was with regard to the height of the deck, which is one of the variances that we're seeking this evening, which is the deck that goes from the home, excuse me, to the bulkhead. What's evolved over time, and we were actually part of some of the ordinance modifications a number of years ago, is when deck elevations were established in Margate's ordinance, it was based on the BFD at the time, with the freeboard at the time, and then it was, basically 20 inches above the BFE. Things have changed dramatically with regard to the elevation and the freeboard in Margate since then, but what has taken it to another level, and I truly believe that in assuming the rules are adopted as written, that this board and the commissioners are going to have to really relook at some of these ordinances, because the DEP's regulations currently, they're called the REAL rules, R-E-A-L, and they have a standard in them which and I've talked about this on a couple of other cases, but I know we have some newer board members. They have a standard in them which is called the climate-adjusted flood elevation. And what that means from a numbers perspective is that you have to take the base flood elevation, which at this location is 10. You have to add 5 feet to that, which then takes in this location, takes you to 15. And then you have to add 1 foot of freeboard on top of that, which would take this location to elevation 16 at a very minimum. What's wonderful is that through some of the ordinance changes that you have made, and Mr. McLaren's been involved in, is that when you establish the ability to have to start regulating your height at 9 feet above the ground, if you use your ground floor for parking and storage, for many of these homes, it's put them into a point, even if they're relatively new construction, it's put them into a point of compliance. I don't want to say by accident, but what I mean by that is this building is proposed to be, the finished floor is at 18.45. If you take the 10 feet, if you take the 10-foot flood elevation, you add the 6 feet to it, it takes you to elevation 16. So this building would be compliant, assuming those rules are adopted. So what it's doing is it's forcing everything higher. And what that does then to, especially these big, beautiful oceanfront homes, is they have deck structures. They've become, the reason you own that property, the reason you own that location is so you can enjoy your outdoor living. To have the deck structures based on your current ordinance be down at the elevation that the way the ordinance is written versus where these finished floors are now required, or going to be required to be, is a major disconnect. The elevation differential is dramatic. And those deck structures, they want to be at or very, very close to the finished floor elevation, which is what is proposed this evening with this application. So I think what has to happen is you have to, the owners have to do it in a way that does not create negative impacts to the neighbors. That's, I think, the key when you're having decks on the oceanfront that are going to be elevated the way that we are proposing them. And I'll talk about the pattern or how the area is developed around it and why we think it's appropriate at this specific location. But
How high will the deck be over the new bulkhead?
so the bulkhead requirement here is 13.
13.
Yeah.
And the deck will be at,
The deck would be an 18.45.
Well, but the bulkhead is not at 13 now.
No.
No, is it going to be at 13?
aren't you putting in a new bulkhead?
Yeah, you were. Yes,
Yeah.
All right,
yes.
okay.
Okay. So
So
that's
just stop
that's
for one
the
quick
genesis
second,
of
though.
the elevation issue.
We talk about, the give and take. In addition to everything else, the city's getting at that location a brand-new bulkhead at the elevated height, doing it this way as opposed to the house raise. Just another thing to consider, please.
So, just going kind of, and we're going to backtrack a little bit, because there was some, just want to talk about the existing condition. And I recognize, and we do a lot of cases here, and I recognize you make, and this statement's made a lot, and it's a correct statement. You tear the house down, you have a clean slate. But from a planning perspective, that's not, in my opinion, that's not really the only way to look at a case like this. You have a person who owns a home. He has a home that has a footprint that is non-compliant. It's at 37% building coverage. We have to be careful with our building footprint because of the fact that we've got DEP standards to deal with. And so this building is being, a permit by rule is being applied to the building, which gives you very little leeway as to how you modify that footprint. Like, for example, we can't go closer to the water. We can't obviously move the front wall because the front wall is at the average front yard setback. So it creates limitations for where the building walls would be with that standard. It's hard. You have a piece of property that has a building that has a specific size to it. Somebody wants to make the decision to, instead of trying to renovate that, to tear it down and then to build a new home. And from a plan perspective, it's my opinion that penalizing that person to take them all the way back to the current day standards is a tough call to make, because they could leave it as it is, renovate it, make it look nice, and that building footprint is what it is, and it exceeds the standards. But because of all the things that they're proposing to give back on this property, you have to balance that and say, okay, yeah, they're not bringing it back completely into compliance, but we have a case here where, and let's talk about the building cover specifically, because that seems to be the biggest concern. We're taking it from 37 all the way back to 32.3. That additional coverage is obviously with purpose for room sizes and such inside the house.
How many square feet's the house, the new house?
4,200.
The new house or the existing?
How many's in the existing house?
Well, the
Bigger,
4,200 includes the upper floors, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So where is it? So you have to look at this, in my opinion, as a balancing effect. So what are the givebacks by tearing the house down and building a new house? Number one, the give back or the benefit is that building is 100% compliant with regard to flood. Number two, the side yard setback, which right now exists at less than 3 feet, is going to 8.33 feet. The other three setbacks are all existing compliant conditions, meaning the front yard and this side yard on its own is a compliant condition. And then there's the rear yard setback is proposing to essentially stay the same, but get slightly larger at 10.3 feet. So we have opened up the side yard considerably. We have increased landscape coverage considerably, and we are building a brand new flood compliant structure that meets all the other standards. When you look at this from a negative perspective, okay, if we build this building as we propose it, what are the negative impacts? Well, we think this, because of the location of this and because of the development pattern that's taken place around it, we think that the negative impacts are negligible. It was already discussed, we have what I call the ocean view condos that immediately next to us, which is a two-story building that goes almost to the bulkhead at the ocean front. There's an outbuilding, which is a two-story building, which is again almost against the bulkhead near our property. That structure itself actually has a roof deck. It's outdoor living because there is no deck in the front because it's so tight to the bulkhead. Has a roof deck. There's no impact on that whatsoever. Immediately behind the structure, which is where we deviate with regard to setback, is an open asphalt parking lot. That parking's not going anywhere. That's serving that entire condominium facility. Immediately adjacent to us, we have moved the building from 3 feet to 8.3 feet. So the neighbor to the rear, or to the I'll say the side, or opposite the ocean front, is seeing a dramatic benefit with regard to to the setback between that house and our house. Furthermore, that building, if you visited the site recently, which I'm sure you all did, was two lots, two houses. If you look on our aerial photo, that have been torn down to build one very, very large house. Beautiful home, very, very well done. And but again, keeping in the scale, you've got our building with some minor deviations, but you now have a house behind us that is essentially twice the size of the house that's proposed on this lot. You have a property next to us, which is a full block of multifamily residential. And then you go across the street and say, well, how are we impacting that guy on the ocean front? He's blocking his own view. If you visited the site, he's got major evergreen structure, or evergreen trees right in the corner here by his bulkhead that creates a green wall. So he can't see toward this property today, and his home is closer to the bulkhead. And he's also set quite differently than, because of the way the bulkhead angles. His views are certainly not across our property. They're out directly to the ocean or on that angle. So yes, it is a deviation. Yes, you do have a blank slate in theory because you're tearing down the building. But you do have to look at what's there. That's the appropriate way to do it from a planning perspective. And our client is bringing it back as far as we think is reasonable and still create the benefit to the neighbors without creating a major impact or negative impact to your land use ordinance or your standards. Last thing I'll leave you with regard to the building coverage is it's 2%. I would argue that myself, we measure for a living, we design for a living. I couldn't pick up a 2% differential on building coverage. If I went to a site, I couldn't say, oh, that's 30, that's 32. It's a very, very minor deviation. It obviously has meaning to our client, or else they would have just gone back to the 30 and made it work to get rid of one more variance. So we think that there are positives to allowing this property to be constructed as it is proposed on this plan. Just a couple other variances. There are the other variances to touch on. I already touched on the height of the deck and why we think that is justified. I think we're heading in that direction for all of these properties, especially on the ocean front. We did also, because I wanted to satisfy myself about this topic, the dune structure along Margate has a top elevation, and I checked it actually in a couple different blocks, has a top elevation that's varying right now between 17 and 17 and a half. If that's the elevation that the federal government and the state felt that the shore protection should be at this location, it would seem from an engineer perspective, it would seem very prudent to have all of your structures that are on your lot, your decks, anything that's on that deck at or above that elevation. So, we saw in Atlantic City, Margate didn't have dunes at the time, but back in Sandy, we saw locations in Atlantic City where the dunes were ripped completely through, and water started to come in. So the fact that the dune is there does not mean that you're not going to have water hit these properties. And elevation 17 is the number that these dunes are at. So bringing all these structures to that elevation from an engineering perspective and a flood hazard perspective, we think makes a whole lot of sense. The only other variance I didn't mention is with regard to the curb cut. If you visited the property, the majority of this site, this frontage is a curb cut now. Most of the frontage is. There are two curb cuts. They're separated slightly. But you have a curb cut right here, and then you've got a curb cut that goes from this planter all the way across and actually toward the front of this property. We're just proposing to reorient them. The one curb cut is a curb cut within the easement area at 9 feet wide, and then we have a standard 18-foot wide curb cut that would go into the garage of this building. So I don't, and I agree with Mr. Patterson, there's not a lot to talk about here from a hardship perspective. That's not the case. This is an appropriately sized lot for the zone. It's an oversized lot, it's over 5,000 square feet. This, in my opinion, is a C2 type of application where the benefits of the deviation outweigh the detriments. I've talked about the negative impacts to the neighbors. I don't see that there are any. I think the benefits of of increasing landscaping, pulling the home away from the neighboring home, and building a brand new beautiful home on the ocean front outweigh any of the potential negative impacts in this specific location. If we had an undeveloped vacant piece of property, then the conversation about it's a clean slate, I think that's hard to argue, but that's not what we have here, and we certainly don't have a very, very consistent single-family home neighborhood. So for all those reasons, we believe that the variances would be justified.
And John, you mentioned the negative criteria. I just want to go to the positive very quickly. Do you see that this project, if approved by the board, would be a positive and be a benefit to the city of Margate and the zone plan of the city of Margate pursuant to the state of New Jersey municipal land use law?
Yes, I think that there are special reasons or purposes of zoning that exist. I think that this creates a much more desirable visual environment through creative design techniques with the beautiful home that Mr. Lolio has developed. And we believe, from a negative perspective, we believe that it does not impair the intent or purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance for all the testimony I've already provided. And it does not create a substantial negative impact on the public good, again, as I described the surrounding land uses and why we believe we will not be impacting them.
And one other benefit that we don't talk about enough, but we should, this also prevents flooding. This, not only with Margate, but the state of New Jersey's flood hazard ordinance is being satisfied, where right now we have a non-flood compliant structure, correct?
It is non-compliant and it will be compliant, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Mr. Barnhart's certainly here to answer questions. The homeowner's here, Mr. Lolio's here. We would like to get the board's input on Mr. Barnhart and Mr. Lolio's testimony and kind of see where you're at regarding our requests. We think that we've proven the case positive and negative, but certainly reserve the right to have either Bob or John continue to testify.
So just for the record, I mean, the house is not going to reduce flooding, it's going to reduce damage to the house.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it would be great if it'd be reducing, but no. It will take an existing non-flood compliant house, making it flood compliant. Maybe that's the better way to phrase that. Yeah.
John, let's continue to beat the dead horse here. You said, why should the property owner suffer by putting a nicer house? And for all the reasons you said, because he has to meet the current requirements. I know you didn't know what the square footage was of the old house, but it had to be smaller. I mean, he's got to be getting a bigger house with the 3 floors, doesn't he?
Adding the third floor.
In total floor area, yeah, but the footprint is what dictates room sizes per floor.
I understand that.
Yeah.
He's
But in total
He's
square
not
footage,
sacrificing
it's not a
square
smaller,
footage of the house.
it's not a smaller square foot of house,
It's a big
no,
house.
that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
But the floor plate, as you know, would dictate room sizes and
Yeah.
bedroom sizes and such, and that's kind of what pushed him in the direction of asking for the 2% coverage variance.
I think Patty had an interesting comment.
Yes,
The existing square footage, when I looked it up, it says 3,995 square feet on the existing house. And that's only 2-story.
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, just to put it into perspective, I mean, it's only 3 feet from the line. So there was, if you take the existing footprint, because as I said, the other 3 are essentially the same setback that's there now. So this proposal is to take that footprint and chop 5 feet of the house off along that side to give that 8.3-foot side yard.
And that's where you pick up the lot coverage.
That's where you pick up the landscaping, correct.
There's less lot coverage on the proposed house than the existing.
Yeah, if you look at the survey, you see this was all concrete, there was concrete in the rear, the whole front is concrete. It's a dramatic improvement from a landscape and frankly an aesthetic perspective.
So it's a little less than 6 feet from the 16-foot required, correct? On the backside?
Yeah.
A little
You're talking
less
about
than
here?
6 feet,
Yes.
on the backside.
That's
A little
correct.
Less than, okay.
Correct.
Anyone else from the board have any questions? Okay. open it up to the public.
My name is Sam Lashman. I live at Hanover Avenue. I'm not a neighbor of this property, but I'm listening to the application. I have a
Hey, Sam, hold on one sec. You're a lawyer? But you're testifying as a member of the public?
Of the city.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you'll give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your address on hand?
119 North Hanover.
Okay, thank you, go ahead.
I understand that the height is changing. I think the owner is probably correct in trying to elevate the house. My question is about the curb cuts. It seems like it's eliminating any standby parking for people to drop people off or not when they go to the beach. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any solid area in front of the house to park. I don't know if that's correct or not, or shown on the plan. Is there any space for somebody to, like,
To park in front of the home?
to not block the driveways?
It's curb in front of, yeah.
So I'm not sure I'm following you. Are you saying for somebody to come down the street to,
If somebody wants to drop off people at the beach and pick them
You're
up,
speaking to the
are they
microphone,
going to be
Sam?
blocking the driveway? Or?
well, I mean, if they pull tight to the bulkhead, there's probably enough room to be there, but I mean, the reality of it is that's a 30-second stop, and it's really, you're not it happens at every street end.
What is there now?
Right now, there's more curb cut than we're proposing.
You have about 22 feet from the bulkhead to their driveway. So what's an average car, like 18 feet?
Yeah,
So
an average is not even,
Get
yeah.
22 feet, so if you pull right up to the bulkhead, let people out, you'd be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? You're
And
welcome.
again, the property owner has agreed to put a handicap accessible ADA entrance there. So
Right.
that would be a place for people to pull up who have a disability as well.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? All right, public portion is closed. Anybody else from the board?
And Mr. Richmond, before you go forward here, I do want to get some idea, if you don't mind, just take a quick second and talk to Mr. Lolio and the property owner, based on some of the comments the board members have made. If we could take just a 2 or 3 minute
Sure.
break, okay?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, the property owner being here is certainly very helpful. As usual, he's heard the board's comments. What he would propose, and Mr. Lolio said he can make it work, is to reduce the rear setback variance by 2 feet. It would take 4 feet to bring it completely in compliance. If
Right.
you move the rear yard in 2 feet, we'd pick up 1.8 or almost 2% of additional landscaping. So we'd still be over, but we'd be minimally over. And as John just pointed out, we'd be reducing the degree of nonconformity of the rear yard setback. So rear yard would be at 12, and that would give us, how much more? 31, we'd be 1% over on building coverage.
Okay.
We would amend the application. We still want the board's input, of course, because, we don't want to go into this blindly, but again, having Mr. Silvillo here, taking your comments into consideration, wants to be a good neighbor, wants to do right, but at the same time wants this house built. And I think that's kind of the compromise back and forth. Much more landscaping. I'm looking at Mr. Giesecke now. You're going to get, by moving this in, even more than is on the plan now. So we would amend and go with that for the vote, please.
So the deck would be moved in also?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. All right. Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else from the board? Okay, Palma.
I think Leo will have to
Right.
be next up.
All right, if there's no other discussion or comments, it's a C variance application. I'll summarize them, and then we'll need a motion and a second. The C variances are the combined side yard setback, they're at 17.82 feet where 22 feet's required. The rear yard setback as amended, is going to be 12.33 feet, where 16 feet's required. That's to the building. To the deck, it's now going to be 13.67 feet, where 16 feet's required. That's the rear deck. Building coverage, 30% is the permitted maximum. The amended, given the cutting off a little bit of the back of the building, 31%. Curb cuts, you're allowed 1, they're proposing 2, and the curb cut width, you're allowed 18 feet. Roger, is that accurate, 22.5 feet in total?
That's what I scaled.
Is that right, John? I thought you said an 18 and a 9 for the 2 curb cuts.
I think the 9 includes the easement on the,
Okay.
It goes over the property line,
Okay.
so it doesn't really count.
I got you. So, okay, so about 22 and a half feet. And then the beachfront deck height, they're proposing 18.45, where the permitted height is 11.67 feet. Conditions, I'll note the ADA access by the bulkhead, and then I'll articulate that better. And then any other representations made by the applicant during the course of the hearing, anything else in Mr. McLaren's report, subject to any outside approvals, and basically just the standard conditions that we put in every resolution. So we'll need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
Make that motion.
Michael Richards?
Okay, so the combined side yard, I don't have an issue with that, especially because of the way the lot is shaped. It's abnormal, so I don't have a problem with that. The rear yard, we're bringing that in a couple more feet. There is a parking lot in the back, so that doesn't really affect the neighbors in the back. And we're including the deck being moved back. That's a good thing. The building coverage, I said we're almost there now by bringing that 2 foot in, right, John? Yeah.
Yeah, 1%.
Okay. The curb cut I'm okay with just because it is a, the,
easement.
what's the,
Easement?
Easement.
the easement, yeah. The easement, and it does allow for more parking on the street. So, I am going to approve it, but I am going to say to Mr. Lalio, and, you know, at one time, it's basically 5 variances now, kind of going down to 4, but it's an oversized lot, it's an empty lot. I know that what we're doing is better than what's there now. But I think in a situation like that, you know, if you design a house, you gotta kind of take what our guidance is into consideration. And I kind of feel like that wasn't done to a certain extent on this house. It's nothing, like some of the things, like I said, the lot, the way it's shaped with the combined yard and all that, I'm okay with that, but in the future, I would just like to see more consideration taken to the city of Margate's ordinances, but I am going to approve it.
Thank you.
Richard Patterson?
I pretty much would echo what Mike said. I have no problem with any of the variances. I had no problem with a variance in the back even before you reduced it, but I guess you had to reduce that to make the house smaller. Well, I'm not going to repeat everything he said. I approve, same reasons Mike did.
Dan Adams?
Thank you. I have to say a couple good things. One, adding the ADA access, I think is good, and it's a benefit for everyone. The fact that you were able to reduce the overall size of the building down to 31%, being 1% over, is an asset. And the fact that you're adding so much landscaping around this property is a benefit for everyone. With that said, and reducing the 2 feet on the back, I would agree with Mr. Patterson. I was okay with it, but I think that reduces the whole percentage of the house, which is a good thing, and I vote in the affirmative and support it.
Thanks, Chief.
I think you're building a beautiful home that fits well in the neighborhood.
Thanks.
Stephen Giuseppe?
I want to echo with what Mr. Richmond said. We do have a clean slate here going, as we sort of say, but I just approve.
Thanks.
Oh, God.
Andrew Campbell?
I'm satisfied with the change to the building coverage, bringing it down to 31%. I agree. You can't really tell that much difference between 1%, let alone the 33 that you were at before. I also appreciate the landscape coverage. I think that's a big deal, especially the closer you are to the beach. So I approve.
Rich Tolson?
Thank you. The concerns I had prior to coming in tonight have all been addressed and answered adequately. Just a couple comments. The 3 months tenure that I've been here so far, it is often stated about the benefits to the city when people come from variances. In this case, and in most cases, I think.
Closer to the mic, sorry.
Whoops, I apologize.
It's not picking up.
It's only 3 months. I'm not catching on to that part yet. You don't want me to start over, do you?
Nah, we got you.
The benefits to the homeowner are always greater than what they are to the city. That being said, there are a couple assumptions that we're making here that still leave me some concern. One, the rear yard being a parking lot now. As development goes in the barrier islands, we don't know that it's always going to be a parking lot. We also aren't steadfast on the legislation and the governor's signature on the increased heights either. So there's a couple assumptions being made, but I can live with them. The new bulkhead and the amendments and the accommodations that the homeowner has made to answer some of the other concerns and reduce the variances that are being asked for are worth noting, and I'm grateful for them. And that being said, it is an improvement to what is there, and I will be voting in favor.
Thank you.
Patty Rosenberg?
I think it's an improvement over what's there, and I appreciate also the adjustment to the setback in the back, and I agree that you don't know how long the white sands will be there, the way things are going around here. There could be other houses going up there. My only concern with this is the massing on the ground level with the enclosed underneath the deck. That the house is going to appear much larger from the street as you walk by with all that enclosed underneath the deck. And I'm not quite sure why that needs to be that way. But other than that, I would approve. Those are just my personal aesthetic
Thank you.
things, really.
Motion carries with 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you all. Good night.
Eric? Eric, come sign this.
Okay, our next case is 5 North Monroe Avenue LLC, 122 North Huntington Avenue, Block 310.01, Lot 1501, located in the S25 zoning district, seeking a C variance relief for pool setback from house and potentially others for a single-family home. Current on water, current on taxes, water, and sewer payments, proof of advertising and notification provided, represented by Christopher Ballison.
It's 5 North Monroe.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. My report is based on the application of 5 North Monroe Avenue LLC, 122 North Huntington Avenue, Block 310.01, Lot 15.01, located in S25 zoning district. This house was approved by zoning, I believe, in 2023 or 2024. It's under construction, nearly done. They want to add a swimming pool. On my zoning chart, the front yard setbacks do meet the required, so that's not a variance. So turning to page 3, the variance required is minimum setback to the pool or clearance. It's a 3-foot clearance is required from the water's edge to any vertical structure or anything above it. And they're asking for a 0-foot clearance for the swimming pool. So that's, I'm not going to continue any more than that, but that's it.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren, members of the board. My name is Chris Balance, and I represent 5 North Monroe Avenue LLC with respect to their Scott's House and 122 North Huntington Avenue. It's really easy application to understand. We have a ordinance provision that requires your pool to be 3 feet away from the wall of your house. That provision has been the ordinance for quite some time, and my understanding is that it is to deter people. There's a couple reasons. Deter people from jumping from a deck above into the pool below. And that raises a couple observations. Number one, the house that we are dealing with, it has been designed specifically so there are no decks above, and there's one casement window, which is the kitchen window behind the sink. There's no opportunity to jump from that structure into the pool. If there were, it seems to me I would rather have the water below that window than the concrete. Just common sense. The other 2 reasons that you have that control is when the pool is up against the foundation, you have water seepage problems, which could affect the foundation. You also have issues of circulation around the pool if you have enough room between the wall and the pool. We don't have those problems anymore since Sandy. This house is designed however many feet above grade for the flood prevention. The pool is sketched a couple feet under the first floor. There is no issue with respect to water penetration into the foundation because it's so far away. And there's no issue with respect to circulation around the pool because there's plenty of room to advance, under the house. And I think we've addressed the major concern, which is flying people above into the pool, because, honest to goodness, I would rather have water there than concrete. The 3-foot strip of concrete is more dangerous than having water there if somebody's going to. Scott Paymer, who's the applicant, will tell you a little bit more about the case, but John Oblenis, would you please rise and be sworn so at least you can confirm what I have said? You don't have to say it twice, but confirm what I've addressed. And use the microphone.
Yeah, hey, Mr. Oblenis, just give us your name and business address for the record, please.
John Obelenis, 108 South Montpelier Avenue, Atlantic City.
Okay, please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening to be the truth?
I will.
Okay. and-
John, you're an licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes,
And you've appeared before this board before?
I have.
Will the board accept Mr. Oblenis' qualifications? Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Oblenis, this house is fully permitted, almost finished, am I right?
Yes.
I made a couple of comments with respect to the reasons why a pool would be situated a couple of feet away, should be situated a couple feet away from a house. Would you address those and confirm that I'm right when it comes to the design of this house and the location of the pool?
Yeah, and, when you look at the pool itself and its relation to the structure, there's really no walls that come up against it. There's a column at the corner, and there's a staircase. We maintained at the ground level at least a 3-foot separation between structural column, the edge of the pool, the water's edge of the pool, so one can navigate around the pool without a problem. We're not being blocked. There's no solid wall. So in that sense.
There is a setback off that column, which is a concrete footing.
Correct.
So you have kind of complied with the ordinance in essence.
Yes, and to the column, to the structural column itself, we maintain that 3-foot separation.
And the space underneath the first floor where the pool is located, there's how many feet to the house, which allows for circulation around the pool?
We have at least 5 feet from the edge of the pool to the actual solid wall to the house.
And the design of the back of the house allows, if somebody were to jump off the roof, there's water below, not 3 feet of concrete, am I right?
Correct.
And the design, the only window in the back of the house above the pool is a casement window that is behind the kitchen sink and above.
Yes.
Right.
And oftentimes, those casement windows, there's a limitation to what they can open as it is. I think it's 4 inches. So one can't really, open it up all the way and jump out. And, again, it's difficult. If somebody really wants to do it, they'll do it, regardless of where the pool is. But from my, not experience, but opinion, that,
Somebody'd have to make a pretty serious effort to climb up on the sink,
yes.
squeeze out at the window, and under those circumstances, you probably would fall straight down onto the concrete.
It's true. I
Um,
agree. So,
Chris, they look like double-hung windows to me.
The other casements.
The upper ones?
yeah.
The upper ones are, okay, sorry.
There's 4.
Scott,
Yeah.
Scott, you have to be sworn if you're going to speak.
Are they bedroom windows?
Yes, at the top.
You can't talk. John, are they bedroom windows?
If they're double hung shown on the plan, we'll make a case, we'll make a.
No, I'm just
We can't
asking.
penetrate.
You don't have to do anything.
Casement at the kitchen level,
Here.
and then those are.
Is that bedrooms?
They're double hung
Is that bedroom?
bedrooms.
Okay. That's my only question. I wasn't,
Okay. And John, there's no deck in the back which would allow anybody to jump off the deck.
Correct.
And to the extent the board thinks it's necessary, we could certainly put some type of protective measure on those bedroom windows to prevent someone penetrating the opening.
Yeah, something, maybe a feature for the window, like prevent kids from falling out, whether it's a pool below or not, it's just in addition to the window itself.
And do you think the design as shown and as requested is a safer design than if you were to have a 3-foot strip of concrete or tile or paver right below the back of the house?
Without question. I believe that's, this version with the water directly below, I think is actually further in so that you really know that you can hit the water, were you to fall out or make a point to jump out, you're going to hit water.
And do you see this having any substantial impact on the public or on the zoning ordinance or on the master plan?
I don't think so.
That's all I have, board members. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Valentin, I have a question.
Sure.
So regarding the third floor, that's two bedrooms on the third floor, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. My concern or my aspect looking at this is egress and ingress in the event of a fire.
Okay.
With the pool located where it's going
Mhm.
and not having at least that 3-foot setback there, for us to raise a ladder to get it to that height or get it to that area, our normal, angle is 75 degrees to climb to properly place the ladder. I'm a little concerned that it's going to be a really bad angle, being that it's going to be closer to the fence, which is only 6 feet back.
Understood.
So I have a little concern.
What's the width of the pool, Scott or John?
Yeah, and when I say that, and I say it with all respect,
Of course.
it's, I worry about people being able to get out that window in the event that we have to rescue them. But I also worry about us having to get in to rescue someone and for our personnel to get out in the event that something's wrong. I'm looking at it from a fire safety aspect.
Does the 3-foot give you enough space to get the ladder on an
It
appropriate angle for
at
somebody to
least
climb it?
gives us some space versus no space.
Does it give the ladder sufficient space to go up to the third floor?
Without putting a ladder there and actually seeing, I don't know. I don't know what the percentage would be, the climbing angle.
Gives a better opportunity than the pool.
Sorry?
Certainly gives a better opportunity than the pool.
Scott, you wanted to address the board with respect to a personal reason that you're doing what you're doing?
Mr. Paymer, just give us your name for the record, I'll swear you in.
Scott Paymer.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you'll give will be the truth?
I do. To address your concern, I don't know if this alleviates your concern or not, but in each of those bedrooms, there are windows on the side of the house. There's 2 windows that gives you access to each of those rooms. And that's on the side yard. That's not shown there, but I could show you in the plan. I have a computer here, and I could show you that plan. Third, no, that's true. The top has a window.
Scott, that's 2 bedrooms up there?
There's 2 bedrooms above the kitchen level. They each have 2 windows on the side.
So the 2
So-
windows in the back of the house, 2 windows in the back of the house, those rooms also have a window on the side of the house?
Yes, except she's asking about this level, and she's correct, there's one window.
I'm counting, yeah, well, I was actually talking about that level, but yeah.
So this level does have,
So the
that-
third, so we'll call it ground level, first floor, second floor, third floor, is that what we'll call it?
that's fine. So second floor, you have,
Second floor, you have access, but the third floor, the one window that's there is no access other than that one position.
correct. Now, I could say I'm trying to think, the window is transit, you have a window in the bathroom on this level, and then you also, yeah, I guess that's the next closest window. As well as the front, there's a window.
On the third floor?
On the third floor, yeah.
So
It's actually a
you have
deck.
egress from the front of the house on the third floor?
Yeah, it's
Is it an
actually,
egress window? Because the bathroom window is not an egress
it's a
window.
deck. It's actually a
Oh,
double.
it's a deck?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And there's, I want to say it's like 4 or 5 feet
Right.
of decking.
Okay.
Something
So
to
you
that
have
effect.
egress in the front of the house?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm a builder. I had started this project, I really had not intended, I had thought about a pool. The reason we come down here is it's a reprieve for my family. We have a son with multiple diagnoses, and really, the summer is the time we kind of get to, like, spend time with him, get him away from school, and kind of reset him. He would never get into a pool until this summer, and we learned that, it was kind of therapeutic to him. And so the idea of having a pool came up after a friend let us use their pool. We had multiple sessions over the summer, this past summer, with like someone who helped them as like therapeutically in a pool, and that's how this idea came up.
Is this your primary residence?
This is a summer residence, and I will be moving into this as soon as we receive the CO.
So this isn't your primary residence?
No, we're in Pennsylvania primarily, but we spend basically from June to August here, and then, weekends and, other vacations. So it's also, we can't send him to a typical camp because he has a problem sweating. So this is really like, for us, the summer, knowing that the pool was something good for him, that's how this became of interest, and that's why I'm making this ask, so.
What you explained to me was that your son has a condition where he doesn't sweat.
Correct.
It would be advantageous for him not to be.
Right, we just can't send him to camp, to a typical day camp where he do sports and other things because he overheats. So now knowing that the pool is something that's good for him, that he enjoys, it's therapeutic, that's how this idea came up. It certainly wasn't something we thought about at the beginning of starting this project, but this is where we are, and so that's why I'm making the ask. And, I've built probably 150 some homes. I very rarely apply for variances. In this case, it's personal, and.
No variances for the home when you
No, not at all, and
building permit?
none, it was all by right. So for that reason, I'm asking for your consideration, and I appreciate it.
I think we need to address the chief's concern clearly that there is access to the second and third floor from the exterior of the house that would be sufficient for his men to save somebody or fight that fire.
I'm happy to pull up the plan and review it with you. Yeah, so I'll review.
I understand what you're saying now, so just to clarify, there's 2 bedrooms on the third floor, but the 1 bedroom has the deck off the front, correct? And they're easily accessible from the front to the back?
Yes, sir, correct. And then.
Does that satisfy you, Dan?
Better than what it was, yes.
And then this is a bedroom, that's a bedroom, with 2 windows on either side.
So there is access to those
And-
bedrooms from the side?
Correct, and then to point out this transom window, there's a bracket on it. You can't get out of that window. There's a mullion in the middle. It opens and it locks about this far off of the frame. Thanks.
All right, anybody from the board?
There's one thing, Mr. Chairman. What's the status of what looks like a garage door opening?
Microphone.
What's
Hey, may I see
this opening?
oh, that's
here?
close. It's a sliding glass door.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
and that's installed and trimmed out.
Anyone else from the board? Okay, we're going to open it up to the public.
Good afternoon, good evening. Sam Lashman, 119 North Hanover.
All right, same, just because it's a new application.
do-
You swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm the rear neighbor. I don't think there's a detriment. I heard the application. I like the neighborhood.
Could you talk into the microphone, please?
I don't think there's a detriment to the neighborhood or the plan. There's somewhat limited land on that block and in the whole area, so if they want to fit this pool in, I don't think it's a problem for anybody. I did want to hear the details, but I will say, Mr. Bailenson addressed some of the seepage issues. That block is a little higher than some of the other neighbors, and that spot is a little higher, so I don't think there's any problem with it. So I just wanted to come out and
I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
I don't think we'd be setting a precedent by doing this. There are other homes in the city that have been granted this variance.
Microphone, Chris.
Yes. I just said, we're not setting a precedent by doing this. If the board's concerned about that, there are a couple other homes that have this situation exist.
Right. Okay, anybody else from the public? Okay, public portion's closed. Leo?
Okay, it's a 1C variance for the pool setback in the rear. The requirement's 3 feet to any vertical dimension or membrane or whatever the terminology is, and we'll call it 0, but it's kind of negative variance, goes under the house. So that's the one variance. Put the standard conditions that we put in every resolution, and we'll need a motion and a roll call, motion second and a roll call vote.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Michael Richmond?
Yeah. When the 3-foot rule around the pool came into effect, I always envisioned to be able to get around the pool if it was an issue. I built pools that we backed up directly to the house, and we just did one event and it backs up to the house. So that was always my idea for which I think is a good thing, to have the 3-foot perimeter. And that this pool does have that 3-foot perimeter. I'm not really, I can't be concerned about people doing stupid stuff all the time. So if they want to, if they're stupid enough to jump out of the pool, then they're stupid. So I'm not going to deny the pool for that reason. I'm going to approve it.
Richard Patterson?
I agree. I think the 3-foot around the pool, whether it's under the house or around the house, you have the safety issue of being able to access anybody that's having problems in the pool. As long as Dan's satisfied that the firemen have access to all the places, then I approve.
Dan Adams?
Thank you. I have to say, Mr. Ballantyne, thank you for clarifying, and with the information provided that there's access to both bedrooms from the rear, I was concerned just for access for both us and for egress for the people. And the fact that there's a deck on the front, that the back bedroom on the 3rd floor could make their way to the front, and it's easier access. I'm all about decks for the safety and for the purpose that someone can get out, so that's a good thing. So with the change of the information and clarification, I will vote in the affirmative for this application.
Stephen Giuseppe?
I don't think this is a good idea to have this pool. In lieu of your situation, I feel it's hard to say no, but I don't approve.
Andrew Campbell?
We have setbacks and clearances for a reason. The 3 feet, to me, should be enforced. I'm going to vote no as well.
Rich Tolson.
Based on the testimony received, I don't see any public detriment. Speaking from experience, landing in a pool is certainly better than landing on concrete. The fire chief's concerns have been addressed to the best of their ability. Personal benefit here, as I mentioned earlier in the previous application, personal benefit versus the community benefit. The personal benefit here is much more notable than in the other applications, quite frankly. Not that that has any bearing on planning or zoning decision, but it's worth noting. There is room between the pool and the house. Although it's under the deck, there still is room to access around the pool. So I would vote in favor.
I think it does, I think that it does have bearing on the case.
Let's get through the voting. I mean, they got the 4, but we got one more, and then
Okay.
we can address that.
No comment.
That's okay.
Patty Rosenberg.
I think we're losing some landscape requirements here. I'm not sure. Are we, Steve? Losing landscape requirements around here? Is the deck, I should have asked this question, if the decking is permeable around the pool, I would approve.
It wouldn't be concrete, I'm sorry.
Hmm?
I should interrupt that. Wouldn't be concrete.
It's going to be solid concrete?
3-foot strip would have been concrete had it been enforced, yes. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Based on the personal note for your son, I approve.
Did you get that? What was it?
Thank you very
Motion
much.
carries with 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay.
Scott, you talked up something inside.
Don't let it happen again.
All right, our next case is Bruce and Randy Pashko, 212 North Kenyon Avenue, Block 413.02, Lot 16, located in the S25 zoning district, seeking C variance relief for front yard, porch, and deck setback, third floor, deck design, shed size, and potentially others in order to raise and renovate the existing home and construct a second and third floor addition. Current on taxes, water and sewer payments, proof of advertising, and notifications provided, represented by Christopher Balanson.
Because of my home location, I have to
Let them set up.
recuse myself for this one.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. The report is based on the application of Bruce and Randy Pashko, 212 North Kenyon Avenue, Block 413.02, Lot 18, located in the S25 Single-Family Zoning District. FEMA zone elevation 8, meaning that the minimum elevation of the first floor is elevation 11 to the bottom. Zoning starts at 12, or 9 feet above grade for parking. Seeking C variance relief, planning and zoning report. The background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinance of the City of Margate in order to elevate and expand an existing non-conforming single-family structure in the S25 zone. The proposal is to elevate the dwelling for parking below, and this requires the house to go higher than base flood elevation plus 3. State law permits non-conforming structures to be elevated to the lowest, highest requirement without variances. I'll say that 10 times fast. Deemed complete, page 2 is the zoning chart. Highlighted in yellow or shaded are the variances on the zoning chart. Continue on page 3. Also, the plans reviewed to generate the report, as well as the documents reviewed as a submission as part of the package. I'll go through the variances requested. and required. Minimum front yard setback to the building, whereas the prevailing front yard setback is 17.57 feet, 14.3 feet exists, and 14.3 feet is proposed. And again, it's one of our, just to expand on that real quick, one of our quirks in our ordinance is the front yard setback begins at the face of the house. That is not changing. It's expanding by going higher, but the front yard for this property is where it is. Minimum front yard setback to the decks and porch, whereas the prevailing front yard setback is 12.2, 10.3 feet exists, and 10.3 feet is proposed for the elevated deck and a new second floor deck. Again, it's an expansion of a non-conforming setback. Minimum side yard setback combined, whereas the minimum combined side yard setback is 37% of the lot width, or 14.8 feet. 14.5 feet exists and 14.5 feet is proposed. Again, it's 3/10 of a foot, which is about 4 inches. Minimum rear yard setback, where the minimum rear yard setback is, I'm sorry, let me go back to my chart. Rear yard setback is 17.54 feet, 16.3 feet exists, and 16.3 feet is proposed. Again, that's for the building part, the main structure. Expansion of a non-conforming setback by adding that second and half story at those setbacks triggers this variance along with the lift. Accessory structure for the garage, whereas parking below a dwelling is permitted, provided that a detached garage is not present. So if you want to lift the house to provide for parking, that's why we give you the additional height, you have to get rid of the detached garage. And a detached garage exists and is proposed to remain. However, my conversation with Mr. Balanson, that may change. Maximum permitted building coverage, whereas the maximum permitted building coverage is 37.46%, based on that sliding scale that we have. 40% exists and 40% is proposed. And again, this is triggered by the lift. Building coverage is not changing. They're adding on what exists. Maximum size of the third floor deck, whereas the maximum permitted third floor deck area is 1/2 the area of the deck below. The third floor deck is 72 square feet, and the deck area below is 82 square feet. I believe in the application they had, it's wider than 1/3 of the width of the building, but since there is a deck below it, that's the first prong. Curb cut width, whereas the maximum width of a curb cut is 18 feet total and 20 feet is proposed. Again, that was scaled, not dimensioned. If it exists, if they're not making it wider, I would say that's not really a variance, but I think they are expanding it. I'm not going to go through my comments at this time. I'd rather turn it over to the applicant to provide his testimony if there's any changes that they want to make or discuss. But go ahead, Chris, with you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. For the record, my name is Chris Balanson. Board members, I represent Bruce and Randy Pashko, who are here for their property, 212 North Kenyon Avenue, block 413.02, lot 18, the S25 zoning district. This is a application where the Pashkos will remain on the existing footprint, raise the house, I'll give you the elevation in a sec, raise the house and add a second and third, 50% third floor and second floor. The elevation right now, I think, is like 12.3, Roger. 12 is where it needs to be. It's just a few inches above what is required now. In anticipation, Mr. Tolson said, we're assuming, but in anticipation of a change, since they're doing this work with the second and third floor, it makes sense to raise the house at one time rather than do the addition and then come back and raise the house, should that be necessary.
So if you're building new, you could do the 9 feet.
Yes, oh, absolutely, sure. So that implicates a bunch of variances, and we heard earlier 5 variances or whatever it may be, but these are variances simply for the vertical expansion. There is no further encroachment into any setback, and the setbacks that are not in conformance are relatively minor in this instance. As Roger said, in the rear yard, in the side yards, we meet both side yards. You probably have 5 and 9. We meet the side yards. We don't meet the combined side yard. It's off by 3/10 of an inch. 4/10 of an inch?
3/10 of a foot.
3/10 of a foot.
Real quick on that.
Do math, I would have been a doctor. Go
I
ahead.
just have a question on it. Dan, what is the cladding? Was that measured to the existing, you have to be sworn in?
Mr. Mascione, just give us your name and business address for the record, please.
Daniel Scott Massione, I'm a Register of Architects, State of New Jersey. My address is 1409 New Road in Northfield.
And you swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Chairman will accept his credentials? You've been here numerous times. Okay.
Just a comment about the cladding on the, this was elevated about 2013 or so.
That's my
This,
understanding.
the house was rebuilt after Sandy. It was damaged in Sandy. It was taken down after that, and this is a new house at a higher elevation.
But it has that stone cladding around the
It does.
foundation, right?
There's a stone veneer on the
Stone veneer.
foundation.
So our ordinance has a provision where we'll give you 4 inches if you have stone veneer. So I would say that's really not a variance.
Because the survey indicates, and they measure to the foundation, they're going to measure to that stone veneer, so.
Right, and
we
there's
have to-
block behind it, but
There's
it's not.
block behind it, so we assumed that it was approved and compliant when it was built. It's just, we use the legal survey for the.
Correct, and the depth of that
It's got
cladding is probably about,
3 inch.
on both sides, it's at least 4 or 5 inches.
Correct.
All right, so my recommendation to the board is that is not really a variance, that's. Sure.
Natural stone, fabricated stone.
Whatever the cladding is.
We believe it's.
It's not set stone, it's a,
Oh, I know what it is.
Yeah.
I was just asking for clarification.
lumpy
If you
stucco.
took that off and you measured to the concrete block, they
You'd be in
comply.
conformance, right?
let me just finish up where I was. As I said, the setbacks are not significant. The rear yard is off by about a foot, and the front yard is off by a couple of feet. The front is 10.3 versus 14.3. I'm sorry, 10.3 to the porch, 14.3 to the house. The porch requirement's 12, and the house requirement's 17, so it's off 3 to the house, 2 to the porch. And that doesn't change. What we can improve upon, Roger, I'll address your comments. The curb cut will comply for sure.
Okay.
Building coverage already complies. Landscaping complies. With respect to the existing garage, that was previously approved with building permit. That was constructed when the house was. However, we understand the situation. We would like to reduce that we'd like to keep the width at 9 feet because the door can remain, 7-foot garage door. That can stay. We'd like to shorten it down to 10 feet. So it would be 9 by 10, 90 square feet versus 80 square feet. And
You need a 10 square foot variance for the accessory structure.
exactly. Rather than buying an 80 square foot shed and put it there, we can reduce that and still have it viable as a shed. Shorten up the back. And that would increase landscaping on the lot to several percent.
5%, I believe. Something like that. Well, I'm sorry, I do have that number, if you can give me a moment.
Sure.
Can continue on, sorry.
I got a question for Roger. So are the sheds are allowed even when you raise your house?
Sheds are.
Right,
They're-
okay.
To me, they're not really needed.
Right.
And the comment about the storage under the stairs, we will change that to a place for the garbage and recycles.
Perfect. So you
Um,
need a height variance for that shed, too.
Okay.
I think it's around 12 feet high.
It'll be the same as the garage, right?
Right.
Yes. 10 versus 12? Is it?
9 versus
Nine.
12.
And that's the application, guys. It's the addition of the second and third floor consistent with the houses next door. The house to the right, as you're looking at the small rancher, that's owned by the Pashkos. So we're not going to have a situation where we're looming over a neighbor. That's their house. And Patterson's house is behind them, and there's a pool there, not a structure. So to the extent there's a concern about massing on the surrounding houses, the house next door, neighbor, is exactly the same, 3 stories, and there's nobody behind us. Dan, all yours.
Certainly, I'll try to be brief. So it is an addition to an existing single-family home of 1 story. The proposed is 2.5 stories plus the parking underneath. As you know, I'm sure you're concerned as a board as the new regulations that the public portion of those closed in December, and we're waiting till July to see what the DEP comes out with. To add this kind of investment into a building, I know it's hard for you as a board, it's also hard for us as design professionals to advise our clients at what elevation they should be looking to build to protect their investment. Because it does look like all signs point to, you know, five or more feet that were going to be required. So we tried to design within the ordinance, use the existing home, go up, utilize, you know, maximize the parking, obviously. I think that's an issue on the barrier islands, of course, all the barrier islands.
The parking will be one in the garage, one
Yes.
in front of the garage, and two in the side yard.
That's correct. The other issue I wanted to touch on, well, with going into describing the building real quickly, is you can see the parking configuration, as Chris had said, you know, 2 parking spaces, we will reduce that to an 18-foot curb cut. 1 in the garage, we are providing an elevator. Because of the size of this home, as you know, it's going to be a challenge as we move forward because these homes are going to have to be significantly higher. But utilizing for parking underneath is a benefit. Once we get up, we're adding, we're adding several bedrooms. We're going from a 3-bedroom, 2-bath to a 6-bedroom. I'm sorry, I forget it. 4-bath, I believe. Wanted to touch on the variance for the 3rd floor deck as well. This deck is under roof. It is pushed into the building. So I understand that the requirements approximately, I believe if I do the math right, about 41 square foot were allowed. The full height of that deck right by the slider is about 6 by 8, so that would give you, about 48 square feet. Now, it continues down, so that deck may be measured as a larger deck, but it really creates the shadow line in the gable end.
But then it
So
also
we're using-
affected the design element, and it's allowed to be half of the deck below.
Yes, which is-
The deck below is only half of the house.
That's correct. It's not the full width. So it's a very small deck, but I believe the aesthetics of pushing a deck back into the gable end will give it more scale, better than a flat gable end. So I believe there's a big aesthetic improvement for this, and it's very minimal. We're talking a 10 square feet difference. If you count the area where you can't stand, it may be a little wider, but it slopes down. So the area.
What you're saying is the footprint, the usable footprint, the deck is smaller.
About 48 square feet, yes.
Because of the gable.
Yes.
Because it's under roof.
So in floor plan, you see a 12 by 8 deck. It's really, the usable area is only going to be the width of that slider, which is about 6 feet, and then it slopes off.
And Dan, because it is pushed back into the building, your
Yes.
3rd floor area is actually reduced by...
That's correct, right. It could be living area. So it is a architectural element that we've used multiple times. I think, while I understand the definition in the zoning orders, it really doesn't contemplate this type of structure. And
It's
that's,
designed actually the way it was always intended to be from the beginning. Push a little bit in under a gable.
Right.
And Dan, if we had pulled this deck all the way over, it would comply.
yes, yeah, if we had enlarged that 2nd floor deck, but we chose not to. I know one other thing I wanted to, I'm sorry, jumping around with the front yard setback. It is an average, obviously, of the street. And we did, if I could just, I just have one photo of, I apologize, of a satellite. And you can see on our original drawing, we do have the list of the properties and their setbacks. But as far as the average, the house directly, well, I'm not sure, 210, the side house, 210, is actually about the same distance away from the street. The one next door is pushed back, but has a covered porch. So we were trying to adjust it to the houses immediate to it. The average is thrown off by some of the houses towards the end of the block, which are pushed further back. So aesthetically, the block does go, kind of has a bulge in it for the setbacks, and I don't think we're affecting anybody's view, height, air.
The house is immediately adjacent to the subject house, consistent with.
Yes, the smaller house, 214 is pushed back, but it has a covered porch, so it does appear that it sticks out, about the same distance. It's a smaller, older home too, which will probably, at some point,
In terms of justification, Mr. Massio, we look at obviously, the prevention of flood by complying with the
Yes.
anticipated DEP regulations. Also, an aesthetic enhancement to the property, be consistent with some of the newer houses on the block.
Yes. I believe, really what this comes down to, and I think we're all struggling, this next 18 months should be interesting, but we're trying to make everything higher, safer, and more resilient. I know designing to future codes is a little bit of a gambit, but I think, by lifting this up, it's just going to be better for the town in the future. Sorry, cut out there.
terms of flood rating? and
It's flood,
safety?
right. As far as being flood-proofed or not causing flood, it is the homes that aren't protected from flood that come off their foundations and hit other homes. And that's really what happened in Sandy. So it's not just the flood being flood safe, it's taking the older stock of home and making them safe, which is a big benefit to the,
Do you see there being any substantial detriment to the public good?
no, I think the safety factor is
Any
a positive.
substantial impact to the zoning plan and zoning ordinance?
No.
Thank you, board members. The Pashkos are here, Dan's here.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions, comments?
Just another comment on Dan's credentials. I think he's a little humble, but he's also a floodplain manager and a construction official.
Yes, construction, I teach the code courses at the Cape Atlantic.
It's been on Palmer's podcast about flood.
If you go back to 2018, which is very interesting, and I apologize, but we talked about this exact issue, and I think I made these exact points as far as would be consistent with my testimony, and I'd be happy to share it with everybody. Just real briefly, if you go up and down the coast, North Carolina gets hit by, storms every 5 years. We get hit by generational storms every 30 years. We just have a memory, we forget. All their homes are lifted a story up. And I'm sorry, the aesthetics are going to change. We're going to have to rewrite the ordinances on all the shore towns if this legislation goes through. We have no control over that. I'm just trying to, do what's best for the towns at this point by looking at it. And, as I said, higher, safer, or more resilient. And we tried to comply to your ordinance wherever we could in this situation. We weren't trying to exceed or add to any the existing nonconformities.
I appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else from the board? Okay, we're going to open it up to the public. Anyone from the public like to speak?
Hey, man, how are you? Just give us your name and address.
Van Carlucci, 221 North Lancaster Avenue.
Okay, Mr. Carlucci, do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. I just wanted to look at this. I worry about porches off the backyard because I live adjacent to the property. I like living in my backyard. So as far as the back, any decks coming off of it? You just come around the other side.
Right here, man.
That's where. We have a recessed deck in the office here, it's a recessed deck in the plan. There's a roof over it, there's a roof deck covered, and
So you can see here, this is the second floor deck, and then just the stair down from.
So is that open on that side?
It is.
It's open.
Yeah, on two sides. And that, you can see that on the side elevation, which is, here and here. So these two.
Doesn't extend from the house?
No.
It's in?
We're bringing it straight up from the existing.
I don't like fireworks getting shot over onto my property. All right, so I had a problem, and
Yeah, you know,
the
platform
decks
deck.
I'm not happy about,
Understand.
but I can live with that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to thank you for that, but I had a little issue last summer, and I don't want fireworks in my backyard. I know they're legal, but after midnight, you want to start shooting fireworks, you're going to have a problem. The cops came out, they couldn't go there, I had to. They went inside their house. So if they're going to not shoot fireworks, I got no problem with it, but that's fine.
To clarify, ground fireworks are legal, not aerial fireworks.
There's something I can say, I'm not gonna.
Anybody else from the public? Okay, public portion is closed. Leo?
Good, Chris?
I'm done.
Okay. It's another C variance application. I'll summarize the variances, and we'll need a motion in a second. The front yard setback, they're proposing 14.3 feet, which is where they're at now. 17.57 is the requirement. Front yard setback to the decks and porches, 10.3 feet is proposed, 12.2 is the requirement. The combined side yard setback, based on Roger's input with Mr. Mascione, that's no longer a variance. The minimum rear yard setback, they're at 14.5 feet, where 14.8 is the requirement. With respect to the detached garage, that's going to basically now become 9 feet wide by 10 feet deep, so it's 90 square feet. It's 12 feet high, so it requires 2 variances as an accessory structure. The height, I believe 9 feet's permitted, they're about 12 feet, and an area for a shed is 80 square feet, and this will now be 90 square feet. Building coverage, they're staying at 40%, Rogers. It might actually go down a little bit, or no?
No, that'll stay the same.
Stays the same.
It's existing non-conforming.
Right.
Typically, it is a variance. but
Okay, so
They're not expanding it.
not expanding it, they're at 40% now, staying at 40%. The maximum permit is 37.46. The third floor deck size can only be half the size of the deck below it. They're technically 72 square feet, where the one below it is 82 square feet, but per Mr. Mascione's testimony, that the usable square footage is really about 48 square feet. And then the curb cut variance is going to go away. They're going to comply with the curb cuts.
Right. The rear yard setback's 16.3. That was a,
Rear yard setback is 16.3.
yes, it's showing that it duplicated the combined side yard.
Is the requirement 14.8?
No, the requirement is, it's
Okay.
on the chart,
Okay.
17.54.
Gotcha, okay, so I'll note that correction. And then, those are the variances, the condition, well, I'll note what they're gonna do with that detached garage. It'll be 9 by 10, 90 square feet. Anything else in Mr. McLaren's
And
report?
higher than 9 feet.
And, yeah, 12,
Relabeled under the stairs as for trash and recycle versus storage.
say that again?
Yeah, Roger pointed out that there's storage located under the front stairs, which is not permitted beyond the front wall of the house. So it'll be for the trash and recycle under that.
Okay.
And the plan will be revised to show that.
Okay, not storage, and the plans will be revised, and then the applicant will comply with any other conditions in Mr. McLaren's report, any representations, subject to any outside approvals, conditions run with the land, the standard conditions we put in every resolution. So we'll need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Michael Richmond?
Yeah, we got rid of a variance. We minimized another variance, the garage, into a shed. The other 4 variances are existing non-conforming. I think it is a benefit to the neighborhood that we're raising the house, getting it out of the flood, and I'm going to approve it.
Richard Patterson?
Well, as far as the deck on the third floor, they're being penalized because they've chosen to have a small deck on the second floor. I think it's a reasonable width with the deck as proposed. If the second floor deck went across the front, as they usually do, it wouldn't be a variance. Other than that, I agree with the chairman. I approve.
Dan Adams?
To agree with what Rich was saying as well, I like the fact that they're looking at the future to raise it and consider the future of what may be as far as the flooding aspect and different things that may come. The fact that it's existing non-conforming and they're keeping it on the property line, I think it's going to look nice. It's going to be a nice addition to the neighborhood, and I vote for it.
Stephen Giuseppe?
Yeah, to mimic what Mr. Richmond and Mr. Patterson had said, I'm going to agree with their comments, so I'll approve.
Andrew Campbell?
Going fifth means that everyone else stole my thunder. So I can echo the rest of the board members' thoughts, especially Dan with the futuristic look at what's to come down the road. And you already have existing non-conforming issues there already, so I approve.
Rich Tolson.
I have no concerns with the applications, and it's absolutely an aesthetic improvement. I'm good with it.
Motion carries, 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, our last case is Jeffrey and Michelle Greenberg, 115 South Lancaster Avenue, Block 12, Lot 8, located in the S40 zoning district, seeking C variance relief for beachfront pool deck elevation and potentially others for the proposed new home at the subject property. Current on taxes, water and sewer payments, proof of advertising and notifications provided, represented by Christopher Balanson.
Yeah, I'm going to be really, really brief. This application was already in front of the board, so I'll just, the report is based on the application of, wrong account. I had it. I lost it. It's the application of Jeffrey and Michelle Greenberg, 115 South Lancaster Avenue, Block 12, Lot 8, located in S30 zoning district, FEMA zone AE elevation 11. Also, this is a coastal A zone requirement, so all the walls below the first floor have to be breakaway, and the pool and the pool deck should not be attached to the main principal structure. And actually, on page 4 of my report, I included the section of pools from ASCE-24, which is the requirements for construction and flood zone requirements. I just put it in there for everyone's benefit and for the applicant's benefit. But the only variance required is beachfront pool deck height, or the maximum permitted deck height of the beach is BFE plus 20 inches, which would be 12.67, and they are proposing BFE plus 60 inches or elevation 17. Not as drastic as the other one heard earlier tonight, but it's still a variance. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Balanson.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. My name's Chris Balanson. I represent Jeffrey and Michelle Greenberg for 115 South Lancaster Avenue. It's beachfront on the Atlantic City side of the street. We received approval several months ago for a new house on the property. The beachfront living area had not yet been designed. It has since been designed, and it's simply a request to have the pool and pool deck extend from the same elevation as the first floor. Similar to what you heard before, but it's 17, not 18. John can give you testimony similar to what you heard before, but and what John said and told me today, that even the first dune here is at elevation 17. So if you're going to have waves penetrating that dune, I think behind it, you want to be higher than it. But we'll be equidistant to it. We'll be right where the first floor is, and hoping that the bulkhead and the pool will be there as well.
All right. Mr. Barnhart, one more time, name and address, please.
John Barnhart, office address 400 North Dover Avenue.
And please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Let me just say one thing, John, before you start. Mr. Greenberg has spoken to the neighbors on the bulkhead on both sides of the property, and the people right here, kind of across the street, who might have an angled view obstruction, and everybody's fine with it. That's all, John. I'm sorry.
Sure. So, as Chris identified, this is a fairly simple application. The house has just recently broken ground. If you visited the site, they started driving piles and such. The structure meets all your bulk standards, all the setbacks, all the coverages, all the landscape requirements. The height meets all the standards. The only deviation that we are requesting this evening is to, as Chris identifies, to allow this pool deck area to be at the finished floor elevation. I gave similar testimony to this earlier with regard to what the future may bring. And Mr. Tolson mentioned there are some assumptions there, and that is a fact. We don't know for certain. But what we do know from a design perspective is those are looming. The public comment period is over. And if they don't change them, then it forces houses to make a decision whether to try to comply with them now and maybe be out of compliance in the near future. This house, again, by circumstance, this finished floor would comply with the new standards, which is wonderful. If you apply the new freeboard requirements that are potentially forthcoming. And as I testified, having the pool deck at the floor elevation, we think makes a whole lot of sense from a safety perspective. And we are not proposing any setback variances either on the front or the side, well, actually the rear of this deck. Just to give you a little bit of perspective also, you can see the home immediately adjacent to us, which I think would be the most impacted. You can see where this is a perfectly scaled model. You can see their first living floor is basically at or above what is proposed with this application. What you can see also here, our client has taken into consideration the folks that are down the street in that we're proposing to have a bulkhead which comes up to the bottom elevation, which would exceed the ordinance of 13. But once we get to the edge of the deck, he is going to build a new bulkhead structure out to the curb line, but he's going to drop that to elevation 13 to make sure that he's not creating any view blockages looking down the street in the front yard. So we know Mr. Asher and his group always do a tremendous job. This is, we think, an absolutely beautiful plan. We think the aesthetics of it will be wonderful, and we believe that it really does have no impact on our neighbors.
John, one thing we always talked about with these applications is an internal safety feature by having the flush deck running from the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Having because of the differential in what the ordinance permits versus these building floor heights, it becomes a lot of stairs. There's a major disconnect based on the ordinance. And I mentioned earlier, I truly believe at some point that's going to have to be revisited. Maybe it's specific to the oceanfront lots, maybe not, but it definitely creates a safer condition. And one thing that I hadn't seen before, Mr. Greenberg, and I was actually trying to come up with a way to maybe show it tonight. Mr. Greenberg sent me a video of his house prior to having it torn down, that his cameras were on during Sandy, and right before they went out, he had some video that he captured, and, his bulkhead is at like about 12 now, and his house was, down met the standards back then, but you see a video, and you literally just see this wave come over the bulkhead, over the pool, and just annihilate the back of the property. So when he showed me that, it was pretty compelling that getting things higher here makes a whole lot of sense. And you just have to make sure you're doing it in a way that doesn't impact your neighbors, and I think he's done that here.
I think what Roger pointed out was, I think the construction code wants the decks to be a continuation of the structure. If I'm not mistaken, we and I discussed.
Well, in the coastal way zone, it's got to be, basically, you have to design a breakaway pool. There's 3 different requirements here, and I don't see you making one
No,
of them.
what I'm talking about is with respect to the continuation of the house. It says the first.
Right.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other thing to point out is that this deck will be, will meet the permeability requirements.
Thank you. That's all. Thanks.
Anybody from the board?
How high is that pool off the ground?
Off of the existing, like, pre-construction grade?
The deck to the ground level.
So the ground, depending on where you look at it, is between 8 and 9, and the top of the deck is 17. Elevation, between elevation 8 and 9.
Between 8 and 9 feet. Between 8 and 9 feet up.
8, 9
Yeah,
feet.
yeah. And the top of the deck is proposed elevation 17.
8 to 9 feet.
Right.
Correct.
Seems if you had it raised with parking underneath. Thank you.
And keep in mind that the way that these beachfront streets were designed originally in Margate, they slope down towards the beach. Now they raise the beach up. So it's kind of, it's a low point when it should be the high point.
Okay. Anybody else from the board? Anyone from the public?
All right, Mr. Carlucci, real quick, name and address again.
221 North Lancaster.
All right, Van Carlucci, correct?
Dan
Do
Carthucci.
you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thanks.
I think it's going to be a magnificent thing. Lived on the street for over 30 years. I remember when they built that house, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And from the pictures I see, it's going to be even better. So God bless him for it, and I think good luck with it.
Thank you.
Can they shoot fireworks off?
You can shoot them off there.
Anyone else from the public? No, public portion's closed. Leo?
Okay, it's 1C variance for the elevation of the beachfront deck, or the height of the beachfront deck. They're proposed at elevation 17, and the maximum permitted is 12.6, or the maximum permitted is 12.67 feet. That's the one variance. In terms of conditions, we'll just say all the standard ones, subject to Mr. McLaren's report, outside approvals, if any, representations made during the course of the hearing, just the standard ones.
Okay, anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Michael Richmond?
Yeah, especially since the homeowner spoke with both the neighbors, I really don't see any impact on the neighborhood. Like John was talking about with, I know my relatives lived on Nassau Avenue and they were one block up and they said there was waves coming down their street. So it's the way of the world. Get things higher. I think it's a good thing and I'm going to approve it.
Richard Patterson?
I agree with Mr. Richmond, I approve.
Dan Adams?
Yeah, I agree with both Mr. Richmond and Mr. Patterson, and I just want to echo what Mr. Valentin had said about coming out and keeping the deck levels all the same. It makes sense, and it just creates less hazard. So, and I agree with Mr. Carlucci. It's a beautiful home, and I wish the homeowner the best. I agree, and I approve.
Stephen Giuseppe?
I have to agree, this is, only makes sense to keep it level, and it's an improvement to what it's supposed to be or whatever, but it's good. I approve.
Andrew Campbell?
I approve as well.
Rich Tolson?
I agree with everything that's been said. There's a lot of wisdom in having everything at the same level. But I think it's worth noting in the addendum to the application that we have been submitted in our package, how this complies with uniform construction code. Arguably,
I could be wrong, that was me, that's my reading of it. Oh, no, from the construction code.
Seriously, though, I think that holds a lot of value, so I would approve this application.
Patty Rosenberg?
I'm really glad you brought this rendering in because I was having a little trouble visualizing how high this wall was going to be, but with, your planned landscaping and everything in front, I think it's really going to be nice. I have to say the last house, this is an improvement over that one. And there's a lot of house coming down over. I remember in the early on. I still remember the Bauhaus house that went there. But I've lived on the street for 40 years. And this is quite nice. And wish you luck.
Motion carries with
Thank you very
7 in
much.
favor and 0 opposed.
All right, Jim, get the house built.
Do we have anything else?
You don't have much time to get it by
All
4th
right,
of July. You better get cracking.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Tom, do you want those plans that are